I had a really dumb idea recently. What if I read the single worst manga I could find? I thought this might be fun because, sometimes you end up reading or watching something that's so bad it's good. In order to do this, I went to Myanimelist, the place where anime and manga rankings are objective and not at all based on opinion. Now, this website is kind of gatekeepy when it comes to finding the bad stuff. Turns out, you can't just sort all the manga listed from lowest score to highest. You can only go through them from best to worst, 50 at a time, and I wasn't about to sit there clicking this stupid little button all day. So I guessed, and I discovered that in order to find the worst manga ever written, you would have to scroll by 18,978 others. When I got there, I was shocked to see that the manga at the very bottom was High School Musical. Yep, this is real. High School Musical, the manga, was made all the way back in 2008 as part of the promo for the classic art house film High School Musical 3 Senior Year. I have never seen any one of these movies, but I do know the basics, and the manga does a good enough job at filling you in on everything you need to know about the deep lore of the High School Musical world in all 8 of its pages. We're in the gym of Eastwood High School. The Wildcats got their heads in the game and won the championship. Troy looks over to the bleachers and locks eyes with his girlfriend Gabriella. We cut to the couple having a conversation in which they discuss their concerns about the future. They're graduating soon. And this is the end. Yeah, absolutely nothing happens in this manga. No music, no dancing. It's kind of like the mangaka made it during their lunch break or something. If mangakas got real lunch breaks. Anyway, I was surprised that this was the lowest rated manga on the site with 2.4 stars. I feel like it shouldn't even be rated because there's literally no substance. Nothing in it even warrants criticism. That's not even me being harsh, it's just not good or bad. It's simply something that exists. After I finished reading High School Musical, I thought to myself,
oh no, this can't be.
It was so underwhelming, and I didn't want the journey to end just yet, so I decided to stick with the manga tuber meta of reading a bunch of them and then yapping for at least 10 minutes. So here are the rest of the 10 worst manga on my anime list, going in reverse order, starting with the second from the bottom, Zanen Nagara Chigaimasu. This is a manga about a 29-year-old man who falls in love at first sight with a high school student. It starts out at the mall because that's where high school students hang out, and fate causes these two to be going down and up an escalator at the same time. When they see each other, illegal sparks fly through the air, and they decide to meet in the food court. The guy goes, "How old are you?" "Will I go to jail if we hold hands?" And the girl replies, "Teehee, no silly, I'm 18. And he goes, "Oh shit, cool, I'm closer to 40 than I am that, but this works just fine for me." I wanted to let out a sigh of relief here, because this was no longer an EDP situation.
Well, fist bump?
It was a Leonardo DiCaprio one, and while it's obviously not as bad, I'll just say the moment I turned 21, anyone who also wasn't 21 started looking kinda like this to me. It's like the mangaka was aware of how bad of a concept she was working with and just wanted to make readers even more uncomfortable. Before the couple leaves the mall, the man, who looks angry the entire time for some reason, says this.
You what?
Then they randomly decide to get married the very same day, go to a hotel, and they kiss. Ew, cooties, the end. It's just very meh for a love story. Even if the characters were closer in age like they should and could have been in the first place, it would still be extremely boring. At third is Sweet My Sister's Pure Pure. At this point, I have been reading manga and watching anime most of my life. I know that if a title has the word sister in it, it is probably going to be one of the most cursed stories to ever be put on paper. I don't know why it's a thing, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Fortunately, the manga has absolutely nothing to do with the incest trope. Unfortunately, the cover is even more cursed than I could have imagined, and based on this, and the mangaka's other work, I can only assume that they're somewhere in a prison cell at the moment. At number 3, we're starting to see a serious trend of these manga not having any substance, because this is the third one in a row that just comes and goes, leaving nothing behind. The premise is two sisters playing at the beach with dolphins, and there's a wardrobe malfunction. These 5 pages are really just a vehicle for fan service. Of course, everything is blurred here because I like being monetized. However, even if you are a fan of fan service, I can tell you as someone who's neutral, it's still not even worth reading for that. But let's see what's next. At 4th, we have a manga called Dead Word Puzzle. This is actually the first one that isn't a one-shot so far. I had no idea how lucky I'd been getting because things get rough. Dead Word Puzzle is about a high school class that randomly gets trapped in a death game. With their lives at stake, some of them become vicious killers while others fold under pressure. This basically describes half of the death game stories that came out in the early 2010s, and it also does not sound very interesting. The first thing I noticed when reading this is that the mangaka was not that great at drawing hands at the time. I mean, I can't draw to save my life, so I can't say too much, but tell me you don't think
Take my hand! Come on!
it's not just the hands that are disproportionate either. Their entire bodies are inconsistently drawn. Sometimes they'll look like characters from a Junji Ito manga, and then the next thing you know, they're built like Beautiful Joe. The second thing I thought when reading this was, oh, this guy's gonna be like a bootleg Light Yagami. And I was kind of right. Almost immediately after learning they were trapped in a death game, our main character starts taking out his classmates just because he's in an environment where he can. He develops a serious bloodlust, but he remains strategic with his moves and the alliances he forms. He's also very intelligent and figures out the games with ease. The problem is Dead Word Puzzle is just kind of boring, shallow, and convoluted, so nothing he does seems all that impressive. It has 4 stars for a reason. We never get an explanation for what exactly the game's purpose really is, or anything you would normally have a question about. The thing that confused me the most were the character deaths. How did they happen? Why? There's no consistent way they die, like a heart attack or anything like that. They all just explode in various gruesome ways, or somehow they get sliced in half, or their intestines just plop out. It doesn't make any sense. One thing I despise the most in any form of media is when excessive violence is used to try and trick the audience into thinking something is good. I am a huge fan of horror movies, but I need a little something other than just shock factor. You won't care about any of these characters because you won't know them. None of them have a backstory. I couldn't even tell you their names as I was literally reading them. Not even the main character, who also randomly dies at the end as well. I wish I had 2 more hands so I could give Dead Word Puzzle 4 thumbs down. This next one is a strange one. Gal Cleaning starts off like a lot of fan service heavy rom-coms that also have a billion diehard fans. The protag is kind of a strange kid who low-key hates women until he meets an outgoing girl from his class. Next thing you know, they become inseparable as they slowly fall in love, or whatever. The main character, Daisuke Kaji's father, loses their home because of gambling debt. This is a sign to check on your friend that bets on sports every week, by the way. Daisuke's dad tells him that he'll be living with a friend of his while he makes enough money to pay off his debt. Coincidentally, his friend also happens to be the father of this girl Daisuke doesn't like, and she's living in the house by herself. Daisuke is a bit of a neat freak, while Chiriko is a slob. The whole house is dirty, and they bond over him cleaning it while she teases him. Gal Cleaning is rated with a 4.3, and at first I thought there had to be some sort of mistake. I mean, it absolutely was mid, but not terrible. I genuinely enjoyed the cleaning aspect of the manga, which I'm realizing is weird to say as I'm recording this, but there were even these nice cleaning tips, kind of like how cooking manga have recipes. The premise of Gal Cleaning has potential, and I really didn't think the story was any worse than any of the other generic rom-com manga that I've made myself read for this channel. However, things take a dark turn. Gal Cleaning got the axe early on, and it's kind of like the mangaka took that as a challenge to turn his inoffensive manga that just got cancelled because of a lack of interest into something that really did deserve to be cancelled. What started out as a manga about 2 people cleaning a big house turned into a complete disaster. There are so many things that get added in for no reason, like violence, SA, a chapter where one of the characters walks around their school without any underwear at all. And to top things off, there are technically only 11 chapters, but chapter 8 is broken into 14 separate full-length chapters, and it feels like a never-ending sludge fest. Even the fan translators had enough. They posted an official statement saying they wished the manga died a fiery death. But it is so hilarious to me that they kept translating anyway, like they were doing it out of a sense of duty or something. With number 6, we go back to one-shots, and thank goodness, because reading the end of Gal Cleaning made me feel like my brain was being sucked out of my skull. This is School Kill, which has an insane title, especially if you live in the US. School Kill is a short, dialogueless manga about a guy who confesses his love for his crush through the power of music. In his underwear for some reason. And it turns out this girl already has a boyfriend anyway. For those who are terminally online, it sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? The difference here is that instead of finishing the song while his heart breaks into infinitely smaller pieces like that guy did, he just gets mad and tries to hit the boyfriend with his guitar, only for him to get rightfully kicked in the jaw. Then he sees the girl's underwear, because reasons. School Kill doesn't feel real, and I'm really not sure if it was made as a joke or not, but I hope so. I mean, it still wouldn't be that funny of a joke, but I say this because the art looks like a rush job done by someone who is actually really talented, and the way they tell the story without words being spoken is creative. It still sucks though. Imagine if the worst guy you know decided to make a manga. That is what number 7 is, and I feel like this one doesn't even deserve to be mentioned by name because of how distasteful it is. This has no redeeming qualities, and I wouldn't even recommend reading it out of curiosity. It's about a guy who hasn't left his room for 15 years, who is presumably hallucinating everything. He hears a woman crying out for help, people die, of course there's assault in it because for some reason SA used to be used as a device to make a story more edgy. This manga portrays it in a very harmful way as well. I don't really like bashing people's work too hard, but number 7 is so trash. The art, trash. The writing, trash. I hope whoever wrote this actually got some help and is no longer in the place they were when they made it. You know everyone's favorite franchise about throwing kids into an arena where they fight to the death for the entertainment of adults?
I volunteer as tribute.
Well, before Hunger Games, there was Battle Royale, a novel about Japanese school children being forced to kill each other in a game where there can only be one survivor. This spawned both a cult classic movie and a manga. The movie got a sequel, and so did the manga. Battle Royale 2, Blitz Royale. And this is number 8. The premise is basically the same thing that I mentioned for the novel, so let's just jump into the issues that BR2 has. The first problem is that this sequel was only created as a means to promote the second Battle Royale movie, and that is not art. It's just like the High School Musical manga all over again, except this has more chapters and a little more substance. It doesn't exist because of the creative vision of an artist, and this is painfully obvious because it's kind of soulless, even though it isn't exactly terrible in my opinion. Battle Royale 2 attempts to be a commentary on the brutal realities of war and terrorism, but it's a shallow one that doesn't explore these topics as deeply as it could. My second issue with it is its ugly character design. Their proportions are all over the place, but mostly the ears. Everyone looks like they could take flight with those things. Speaking of the characters, this is another one of those situations where the characterization isn't the best. At least in BR2, there are characters that you will know when reading, but none of them are very memorable. In a story like Battle Royale, you should expect every character to be expendable, and most of the cast does end up dying, but the deaths don't carry weight, they don't have any emotional impact whatsoever. On top of this, the ending is super rushed. They're set up for this high-stakes ending that had the potential to be really engaging, but ultimately, things are wrapped up within 2 chapters. Barely anything happens, and the ending doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. With all this being said, I refuse to believe that this is the 8th worst manga out of 18,983 with a rating of 4.4. I think the reason why this is so low is because the fans of the first Battle Royale manga, which is apparently really good according to the reviews I read, has a lot of passionate fans who read the sequel and were let down. Normally I would discount this type of reaction, but I completely understand it here because this sequel, that is barely a sequel in the first place, is a downgrade in every possible way imaginable. One thing's for certain though, it's definitely not worse than what's next. These last 2 I can barely talk about because they are basically hentai, and I enjoy not getting in trouble with my internet overlord, Mr. YouTube. They're also not really worth talking about anyway, but they are kind of funny unintentionally. Not in a you should go check them out type of way, just to be clear. They're funny because they read like they were translated by a group of British Gen Z pirates. Number 9 is Room 402. It looks like this, which is the reason I can't talk about it. It's about blah blah blah. It has a rating of 4.5. It should be worse. Number 10 is called Delivery of the Dead, which I assumed would be about zombies delivering packages. It turns out it's more about these desperate guys delivering their packages to zombies instead. Every time I thought I had read the worst thing imaginable during this whole process, I was proven wrong almost immediately. This manga is about zombie prostitution.
Brother,
If you ever wondered why morgues prefer to hire women over men these days, it's because of the type of people who would write or enjoy delivery of the dead. And yes, that means exactly what you think it does. I think the funniest thing about this manga's existence is that it attempts to speak on human rights, even though it is what it is. The slogan "Dead Lives Matter" is used, and I almost rolled my eyes so hard they got stuck in my head. Delivery of the Dead ends suddenly with the announcement that the mangaka didn't make any more volumes after the first one. I appreciate them quitting so much because these felt like some of the longest chapters I've ever read in my life with how they dragged on. I still fought through them, but they definitely had hands. Reading the worst manga on Myanimelist was one of the experiences of all time. Fortunately, it didn't take too long to get through the 10 of them because they're all pretty short, either due to them being one-shots or being rightfully cancelled. I wouldn't recommend a single one of these, even to people who are just curious, because for anyone who doesn't plan on making content about them, it would be a massive waste of your time. Like always, check the description for my socials. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.